Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Unlock Show. I'm your host, Tracy Wilson. I have got a super duper treat for you guys today. I've got the amazing Kelsey. Now, I'm going to say, I totally asked her, how do I pronounce your name before we start the show? And she goes, because normally it's a silent K, but it totally isn't because she's Scandinavian, and it is Knutson. There you go.
So
I get that right. Knutson. Oh my God, so close. See, it's one of those things you always have to check. How do you pronounce somebody's name before you get started? With a boring name like Tracy Wilson, most people can. Man, if you're going to get that wrong, you're in some trouble, right? So anyhow, now that we've got Kelsey's name right, I want a huge welcome her to the show. I want to tell you a little bit about her before we even get kicked off. Now, for you guys that are sitting listening to the Unlock Show today, you'll see that the title of today's show is what does it actually take to start your own business? Some of you might be wondering that. You might be sitting in a 9-to-5 job. You might even have a business of your own right now and wondering, gosh, I want to take a little bit of a different turn. I want to pivot. I want to do something a little bit new. Now, if that's you, I want you to listen up because this woman I've got on the show with me today has done all of that. She's pivoted. She started out doing hairdressing and then decided that she was going to go down a completely different path and has started a new business a number of times. Not only has she done that for herself, she's also helped loads and loads and loads of other people do exactly that. Take what they want to do, take their passions, their desires, and turn that into businesses, really profitable businesses, by the way, that they absolutely love. So that being said, I want you guys to grab a pen and paper because you're going to have to write some of this stuff down. Kelsey and I are going to be chatting about what does it actually take to create our own business, to start a business, and even that business from scratch. So welcome to the show, Kelsey. It is fantastic to have you here.
Thank you, Tracy. And I could talk about this topic all day long. So I'm very excited to be here, serve the audience, and let's just get the party started.
I know that's kind of like, because now you guys that are listening, you've got two people that love to talk and love this absolute topic. So we will try and keep this as concise as we possibly can, because like Kelsey said, we could talk all day on this particular topic, but we're going to go for, probably an hour max. So like I said, these shows are always jam-packed, full of really insightful and useful information. And if you've been listening to the Unlock Show for a little while, you'll also know that there are always takeaways, things that you need to go away and actually do today that are going to make a difference to you, your business, your family, and your life. So that being said, let's kind of rewind a little bit, Kelsey. Let's give everybody a bit of your background. How did you start out and how did you become so interested in business?
Oh, that's a good question. If I'm honest with myself, I've always wanted to go into business for myself. I just didn't see a clear pathway on how to make that happen. So I actually studied at university. I think that's what you call it in Australia, but I went.
We do.
Good. But I went to university. I studied entrepreneurship. It's a major here in the States, and I absolutely loved it. But it was very much come up with an invention, pitch it to investors, and then launch it. And for me, I was like, this can't be the only way to start a business. So I found a path with some consulting work I was doing. It was through the university, so it was a safe place for me to kind of play in that realm.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, quit the day job, went to beauty school, and at the time I was already doing hair and makeup kind of as a side thing. So to me, it was, I want to start my own business. I like the idea of having my own schedule. I'm already doing the hair thing. I might as well make that legitimate. And it felt like the easiest pathway to entrepreneurship. And I share that because if you're someone who has it on your heart to start your own business, be honest about why. And maybe the vehicle you're choosing to get there, even though what you're picking today may seem easier, it may not actually be what you want to do. And I think a lot of people who fall victim to this are people who hop into direct sales or those kind of multi-level marketing schemes. I have opinions about that. But at the end of the day, be honest with your why and understanding why you're taking this action and if the vehicle you're choosing to get there really lines up properly.
And that's I'm so pleased that we're talking about this because that is a common I suppose, trap that a lot of people fall into, isn't it?
Yeah.
Whether you go to university or to college and you study, business or entrepreneurship, and you tend to go and then create the business based on what you're already doing. So, dabbling with hair and makeup, and so that seems like the most logical thing to do, is to go and create a business based on something that you already have a bit of a passionate about. But like you say, it's then really thinking about why. Why am I even why do I want to go into business? So let's talk a little bit about that, and why is that so important? Why is it important that we think about that, and we're honest with ourselves, as I'm going to say, as soon as we possibly can, as early in the process as possible? Why is that important?
I think if you don't, you will burn out, or you'll resent your job, or you'll never find fulfillment in what you were doing. And I know this because I've experienced it firsthand. Like I said, went to hair school. We call it cosmetology school here, and built up my clientele, worked under mentors for 3 years, went off, opened my own business, 6 figures. It's successful, but I was not fulfilled because I was chasing the wrong thing. I didn't do that deep inner work of understanding myself and my why, and what I actually really wanted to do in life felt too far. So I almost like pulled the finish line closer to make it more achievable for myself. And I did burn out. I got to a point, on the surface, dream business, ideal clients, high-end clientele, dream team where we did wedding hair. And I also had a studio where I would cut and color by myself. On the surface looked super successful, but internally I was not fulfilled because I was not in full deep alignment with my why. So I think, if here's the thing, you're moving regardless, you're doing stuff regardless. So if you're not aware of, I call it that end destination, where you want to go in life, if you're not aware, you're still moving. So you might as well take the time to really recognize where that place is where you want to be, ensure what mode of transportation you're choosing to get there is gonna actually get there, and also check in. Maybe that changes and evolves over time, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, for me, that was a beautiful chapter. It made me a much more successful coach because I understood what it took to build my own business. It wasn't just, philosophy, learning that in school. So I have zero regrets in doing it, but I feel like I'm living out my truest why now because I'm more and more and more aware of what it is.
Isn't it really? I mean, that's really fascinating too. And again, I think that will resonate with so many people, because we often do start out and we're creating these businesses. And like you say, you were doing really, really well. So on the surface and to the outside world, gosh, Kelsey's really successful. And then all of a sudden, you realize that, or whether it was a gradual thing or just a moment in time where you were like, oh my gosh, this isn't doing it for me anymore. I'm not feeling fulfilled. So talk me through that, because I can only imagine that at that time, what's going through your head, and everybody else saying, God, Kels, you're doing an amazing job. God, your business is growing. You've got an amazing team. You're delivering really awesome, products and services to your clients. And then you go and throw this, spanner in the works, because now Kelsey wants to change her mind and do something different. Talk me through that.
Yeah. I would say, first of all, the emotions behind that were burnout had happened and COVID had happened. So in the States, we were shut down. So I literally couldn't do hair anymore. And I wasn't happy COVID happened, but I was happy for that time to really just be for a minute and really think about things. And that's when I realized I had this heart for helping people in business, that I hadn't had the time and capacity to do that in the hair world. And so I was hungry. If I could do your logo, we can't even work right now. You're getting government funding. Why wouldn't you want to work on your website? Why wouldn't you want to revamp your social media? All the excuses you throw out there of, I don't have time to do XYZ thing. Now is the time to do those things. And I naively assumed every business owner would be that way. Turns out they're not. But I basically got to taste test what it's like to do what I do now because of that perfect circumstance, right? If I'm honest, I think I would have stayed in the hair world a little bit longer if that giant change hadn't happened. So I'm thankful for that time, because it was like, what else am I going to do right now? And also, I need to pay the bills. So yeah, sure, I'm getting some government funding, but it's not the same I make in the salon I am supporting myself and my partner. I need to make more money. What are the ways to do that? Well, if I could do a coaching call, if I could offer my time, I can do that virtually. And so it was the perfect kind of storm of all of those things. As I was doing it more and more, and I realized I didn't want to go back to hair, some advice around this. If you're in that position where you want to make a change, seek out people who are really going to provide that tough love and that accountability, but also understanding for what you want to do. And what I mean is sometimes that person's not your partner. Sometimes that person's not your parents or your sister or your best friend, because they just don't see that bigger vision. So I actively sought out people who had done that, who had left a good business for another business willingly. And those were the people I sought out for mentorship, for coaching me. And that's the advice I would give. If you're not getting the support you want or need to take that next step where you want to go, you might be leaning on the wrong people for that. And that's okay. It doesn't mean they don't love you. They just may not be able to see it from where you see it.
Absolutely. I mean, that is a fantastic piece of advice, and I couldn't agree with you more. And as much as our friends, family, they love us and they want to support, sometimes you do need, not even sometimes, you always need somebody else there to give a different perspective and to be able to give you that tough love when you need it, and the mentorship that you will require to enable you to really accelerate your progress, right? Super important. In the show notes of today, I actually wrote a book with a business partner of mine called 6-Figure Leader to 7-Figure and Beyond Coach. And just because we're talking about this around mentorship, I'm actually going to pop that into the show notes for today, because I think it's really important that people really do understand that. And I love the fact that you took that opportunity that was really thrust upon everybody, right? It was like,
right.
Oh my God, what are we going to do now? And it happened all over the globe. So, you sitting in Washington, us sitting, whether you're in New Zealand or the UK or in Australia, everybody was hit like that. And to have the kind of business like a hair and beauty salon that really relied on foot traffic and being in close proximity to people, just have that shut down. You certainly could have just sat back and said, it's okay, I'll ride this out, I'll get the government funding, and I'll jump back into the salon when things come right. But funnily enough, during that process, right, we never knew when that time was coming. Thankfully, we're at at the other side of that now. But taking advantage of those moments, like you say, taking advantage of the times where you've got some downtime, and sometimes things might feel like, oh my God, I'm in the thick of it. I don't know what I'm going to be able to do. But there was a silver lining in that. And that was, it gave you some time to think, to pivot, to explore some other things that you've now found yourself to be really, really good at in that coaching and mentorship, kind of area of business. So when that all happened and you realized that people around you, even though you were doing this pivot, other people weren't. What did you do to help others? Like, because there's a time, right, where you're doing it, but other people aren't. So there's this need for you to be able to reach out, convince, share with others the things that they should be and could be doing during this downtime. How did you go about doing that? Because at this time, this new business idea is starting to bubble to the surface. And through that process, a new business is being created, right? So what happened next? And how did you start to get other people interested in what you were doing?
Oh, Tracy, I did everything wrong. I had built this successful salon, and I naively assumed that audience that I had built for that business would be the same audience for my coaching business. And on top of that, I also assumed business 101. People need to understand their finances. So let me build a course on profit first and how to pay yourself. Marketing 101. People need to know how to post good content. So I really focused on the how so much more than the why. And I also was screaming to the masses, what I say to my clients now. I was screaming to the masses versus whispering directly to a few. So I was way too broad. I spent so much time building this online course, and I'm very transparent and authentic in what I do. Full on launched a course, $0 sales. Why? Because no one knew who I was as a coach. They knew me as Kelsey, the hair expert. And it's not fair to hold space for the same audience. I kept the same Instagram and social medias, just updated the bio kind of thing. It's so unfair to assume just because I cut your hair and we talk about business that you're going to actually need my business service. And I did assume that. And so I just really struggled in the beginning. I remember I'd post some content, but like I said, mostly hiding in the background, building this course. First, I built it on Google, and then I Googled, who does the best courses. Then I found Brendan Burchard, and then I'm like, oh, Kajabi. That's the answer to all my prayers. It's not marketing; it's that I just need the systems, a system. So then I built this whole funnel on Kajabi. Websites live, go buy now. Like, people don't respond to that. And so it took a lot of doing the wrong things and not getting traction. I had someone reach out to coach me, and I kept being like, I'm fine. And then finally, when I launched that course and no one bought, I reached out to her, and I got help as a coach. And her specialty was online coaching, specifically launches. And that's exactly what I needed. So I was able to pay off her thousands of dollars in 2 months. And since then, I'm just growing and growing and growing. And what I've learned in that time is whatever thing you're launching, whether it's a product or a service, if it's new to you, you need to really take a lot of time being intentional and nurturing your audience. So if you want to launch something, say in January, you can't start talking about it in January and have success. There's always the one-off people who go viral and stuff. But for the most part, if you're presenting something new, that takes time and intention. And just because people know, like, and support you for what you do currently doesn't mean those are your people moving forward. I have plenty of friends and family that own businesses that don't hire me as their coach. So stop like forcing people to be your clients, and instead speak directly to the ideal person. And you'll know, in the beginning, she was like, stop thinking about this course and just do one-on-one. Just promote one-on-one. You'll learn from that experience, pick up the patterns, then build something from that experience, and you get paid to do it. So that is what I did. Once I flip-flopped, got the help, it totally changed everything.
You and I can have a bit of a giggle about this, right? Because that is pretty typical for most people, because they think, oh my God, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to do all of this stuff, and don't worry, I don't need any help. I'll just figure it out myself. And not that we make the conscious decision to do this, but trial and error, I'm okay with that. I'll just figure it out along the way, until we realize that, oh my God, I've spent a whole lot of time, effort, money, like building something, when I actually could have fast-tracked my whole success path if only I had got the help sooner. So I think that is really, really important. I mean, if you think about building a house, right, it takes months and months and months of planning. We spend that amount of time working out what colors we're going to have, what's the layout, what's the design, what bricks will I have on the front, all of these things. We think about that for months before we decide to pack our bags and move in. I mean, if you were going to do that just today, I've decided I'm going to build myself a house, and you've bought the section, as in you've just gone and purchased a domain name. Now I'm going to move in. You'll be moving into an empty block. And that's the same kind of concept that we've got here. Is most people think that they can just do it, and within a very short space of time, the droves of people will just be lining up to see you. There's a lot of other things that go on behind the scenes, right, in the lead up to building your audience and building those that want to hear your message before it's even time for you to open the doors, so to speak.
Yes. And I mean, full transparency, my salon, my first month of business, I made over $8,000. So I'm comparing this brand new business that I have no established relationship with my audience on, to the salon business. But I have to keep in mind, yes, the salon business was new, but I was still doing hair before that. So even though in my head I didn't have to warm up that audience, I actually did, because for 4 years prior to that, I was already posting only about hair and weddings. And so 4 years of my audience being prepared to be my client in my own business versus coaching, I thought I could just turn the lights on and that people would show up. And the other thing you were saying a little bit earlier about getting the support and mentorship, get the right help. And I think back to that why piece, that's why it's so important to know your core why, how you make decisions, what feels really good and what feels not so great, and being aware of that. Because I think oftentimes people think, ooh, I'm struggling with Instagram, I just need to hire an Instagram expert. And oftentimes, especially if it's your first hire, that's probably not what you need. You probably need a coach or a mentor to help you put some guardrails up, keep you focused, implement some systems. And then once you get to a place where it's almost like absolute dire need, everything else is blowing up, the funds are there, that's when it's worth hiring those experts. So I just wanted to make sure we talked about that too, Tracy.
I totally agree with you. And I'm glad that you've kind of circled back to this why, because I want to go back there too. In helping somebody to understand or to get to the core of why they're doing something, what is some advice that you could give people? Like, is there a process that you've, like, over time that you've actually figured out, this is how, for you, this is how I get to my why, and this is how I know that I can stay in total alignment with that over time?
Absolutely. It's kind of funny that you mentioned that. So there's tons of podcast books. There's different experts who have all talked about this. I've done the Brene Brown thing where there's a big list of values that she has. You pick a list and then you go down and down until you have a top 3. I've done the John Maxwell version. He has little cards where you go through the cards, same exercise. I did this recently this year. I believe it's something it's worth doing at least once a year just to check in, because I also believe that stuff can change as different seasons come up in your life. But I recently did it. I changed the verbiage on my website. I challenged myself to show up more authentically with my audience and with the podcasts I'm on and the topics I talk about. And then I recently actually did the legitimate why exercise, which, for those that don't know, Simon Sinek wrote a book, Start With Why. But a lot of people don't know he actually has a part 2 that's a workbook. And you have someone who sits across from you and facilitates conversation to arrive to your own personal why statement. And the funny thing, Tracy, is, again, revamped the website not that long ago. Recently just did that why exercise. And that why exercise, those words are already living on my website. So I was already aware. I just didn't have it condensed into one sentence. So I would say, of all the different things I've tried, all the books I've read, I believe the Start With Why is a great starting point, just to hear kind of the methodology behind it, why matters and all of that stuff. But then I would find someone who doesn't know you very well and have them be the facilitator for your why. It took 4 hours of intense just storytelling, telling my highest highs, my lowest lows. And the facilitator's job was to pinpoint what themes keep coming up and really digging in. And what we arrived to, this person, he would write what he thinks my why is. I wrote what my why is. And we kind of would go back and forth until it felt good coming out of my own mouth, because that's what matters. And I would say that process is the more streamlined way to get there. But obviously, because the verbiage was already on my website, I knew, it's just I didn't have it down to like a sentence. And now I have a sentence.
Beautiful. I don't know if you want to share that sentence. You're welcome to.
Sure. Yeah. So just to add a little context, the format is to do something, blah, 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 so that something. That's the specific format of the why. It's not just like my mission. It has like a specific format by design. So mine is to inspire people to take action on their biggest dreams so that they live a fulfilled life. So for me,
I love it.
Thank you. And what's kind of crazy that I learned, that actually comes from a place of fear. A fear that I don't ever want to feel like I'm missing out, so much so that I project that on other people. So if you tell me, Tracy, that your dream is to be a professional skydiver, I'm going to keep checking in until you realize that dream, because now you've told me. And I tackle my business life and parts of my personal life. Like, I never want to have FOMO. I would never want to feel like I didn't say yes or take advantage. And to the point where it comes from fear. So it's good to be aware of like the root of it, but you can see how that thing can also be used for good, which is why I have the podcast. It's why I'm a business coach. It makes so much sense that I do what I do.
And, that's really, really interesting, Kelsey, because very recently I've also been doing a lot of research on these leadership styles, right? And to you, based on what you've just described, like, you're a classic coach leadership style. So it's no, there is no mistake that you're a coach by nature, and you're a coach in what you're doing. And the fact that you say, you tell me that you want to, your dream is to skydive. You actually cannot help but to help that person and coach that person to the point where they are going to be jumping out of a plane and enjoying that skydiving experience, because it's actually ingrained in you. It's really, really fascinating. I might do a show further down the track on these different leadership styles, but it's really interesting. So it's funny that or no coincidence at all that you should be talking about that today, because that clearly is your leadership style. So that's super cool. Yeah. So this getting to that core of your why, and I love that structure. It's so simple in its creation, right? And it enabling people to just sort of fill in the gaps. But the advice of go and grab Simon Sinek's books and read those two that are about, it starts with why, and give the gift to yourself of really understanding what you want in life and why you want, more importantly, why you want it. Because that's, when you start delving deeper, right, that's when we really start to question ourselves in the decisions and the actions and the behaviors in which we are displaying, to determine whether or not that's actually going to help you move towards the goals that you've set yourself. It's fascinating, isn't it?
Absolutely. And like I said, once you do it, also check in. Maybe it evolves over time, or maybe you gain more clarity of what you want or don't want. There's certain things that I had focused so much energy, like I said, on that course. 90% of people don't complete courses. So no wonder it's hard for me to talk about it and sell it, because I, to my core, know if you buy this thing and you don't finish it, I'm going to feel like I failed you. And I don't really, this sounds bad, but it's the truth. I don't care that you failed, but that just makes me feel like I'm not doing my job. Like, I know I can't save you and do it for you. I already know that that's just not going to happen. Therefore, I don't even want to offer it to you in the first place. I'd rather you come listen to my podcast, read my blog, hire me to come speak. There's so many other ways I can support people that feel more. That's why that why piece I hammer home so much, because I think the more I know that about this myself, then I have more laser clarity on what offers I want to have that really light me up and feel awesome in that way, and what ones I maybe say goodbye to that aren't serving me in that way.
And I think that's a great place to come from too. Like, now that you've understood what really, I suppose, makes you tick and makes you light up, it is seeing other people really have the success when you have been able to coach and nurture them. And if they don't get that level of success, that, you take that to heart, and that's not a good thing. That's not a good place for Kelsey to be. So I love that you understand that, and you do that right from the get-go, so that will actually, that obviously increases the success rate of every one of your students. So you're speaking my language, and I absolutely love it. So I now want to kind of go here, because this really does lend itself to you've talked about the brick and mortar business, as in, I've had a hair salon. We're now talking about the online space. I know you also talk about sort of, e-commerce or products that you can sell through even platforms like Etsy. So let's help people understand, like, what sort of things are possible for them, and once they've kind of worked out their why, where can they go next to determine what type of business should they start? Should I be starting a brick and mortar? Should I be going into the coaching or, coaching and consulting type space, or mentorship? Should I be going down the path of, creating some sort of online store? Is there a system or a process or a way that you think is best for people to approach this?
Yes. I'm going to use a business school terminology, which at the time I thought was silly, but is 100% true, which is minimum viable product. So often, especially nowadays in the digital age, everyone just sees like the pretty, like perfect version. You should not be having 17 different offers right off the bat, especially online coaches, myself included. The best thing I could have done was just laser focus on those one-on-ones, serve them well, because higher ticket, so I don't need as many of them, and continue to show up on social media. If I had just done those two things, I would probably be double as far as I am now. And so anyone who's entering that space, I shake them in the shoulders and I'm like, don't do what I did. But of course, life is the biggest teacher. So I can't be mad about that. But
I'm glad you've said that, because actually, after I don't know how many episodes of the Unlocked show that I've done over the last few years, that has come up so many times. In fact, I was having the conversation with one of the guests just last week, sort of behind the scenes, and I asked her that question. I really wish that I'd asked that during our live episode, but I said to her, is there anything you would have regretted? And she said the same thing. I wish that I had actually just stuck with one thing, that I hadn't delved into, oh my God, I think I've got to create all these things. I don't have enough of a product range or offering. If I'd just done that, I would have been able to, like you say, laser focus, be very particular, your messaging becomes extremely dialed in because you're only talking about the one thing.
Yeah. I would say that. And then back to that why, I have a perfect story that explains exactly why that's so important. So one of my clients who's in my mastermind owns a hair salon. Okay, so that's already two businesses. She's behind the chair, so she has her clients, she runs her own business, and then she's essentially a landlord that owns the physical space and people rent from her. So her third business, the thing she wanted to start was hair products, design, combs, clips, that kind of stuff that hairstylists would use. And I remember asking her why. Why do you want to start that? Well, residual income. Okay, why? And the more we peeled back the layers, I learned she had this big heart for inspiring hairstylists to see what was possible and actually create this beautiful work-life balance. She has this in her life and she wants that for other stylists. And I was like, how is $20 foil going to get you there right off the bat? It doesn't mean it's a no forever, but if that's your why and that's your impact. So we totally, in working together, initially physical product. What is she doing now? Mentorships. She's already growing her education team. She had her first in-person hair and business workshop all within 6 months of working together. And that's where that why is key. Because as a coach, had I not asked that question, I probably really would have done her a disservice, honestly, because as you know, your audience, right? How many people who listen, watch, are on your email list actually buy the thing? Not that many. Percentage wise, it's not that many. So if you're going to sell something for $20 or you're going to sell something for $500, what's worth your time? And if you're just getting started, people need to know, like, and trust you. And if you're getting in the product space, talk about a ramp up period. That's a much longer ramp up period. And I said, you need raving fans before you launch some kind of physical product that's going to compete with what else is in the market. And so we totally reworked her business. She has dreams of those products. They'll come into the play someday, but she is loving what she's doing now and she's doing it. She's already traveling and has her second class lined up in a couple months. And like I said, 6 months of just laser focus on the right things.
Well, firstly, congratulations to her and you for getting her to that point, because that, like for most people, that seems the most logical thing to do. Go start this. Let's create another stream of income. But doing that deep work and really peeling back the layers of why, and getting to the point of this is why I want to do it, and then realizing that, oh my God, that thing I was going to do is actually, it's not in alignment with that. In fact, that's going to take me way off track. So I think doing that, right at the outset, hence the reason that you are now able to get her super laser focused, and she's now, tripping around the countryside or the world, rather than trying to figure out or backpedal and unwind some of the stuff that she might have created, because like you, she may have found herself also in that space of burnout. So I think these are all, a lot of the stuff that we're talking about today, even though it comes down to that one thing, when we think about the one key thing out of today's episode, it is really getting clear on your why. And when you do that, it's going to help you to make better decisions. The other thing that I want to go here too is this whole concept around MVP, so minimum viable product, right? And after many years of writing, business plans and grant applications and, investor type documents for businesses, getting to that MVP point is really important, but is a thing that most people don't do. They either don't do it at all. They build, like you were saying at the beginning, I went and built the whole thing. It was so beautiful. Everything was just working amazing. It looked really good. And I launched it and crickets, nobody came.
Right.
And then we do this other process of the MVP. So let's kind of talk about that a little bit more, because I think it's something that is overlooked or not spoken about enough.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks, but it's not sexy. It's like not a fun, sexy answer that I think people are looking for. And I think what happens is they're looking for a shortcut for the work. And the work is this: you understand your why, you identify a core problem that your product or service can solve, and then you identify what people are going to most resonate with that problem. And you stick with one thing and you do it well, and you keep doing it and you keep doing it until then you have proof of concept. And from there, you can grow. But if you start with too many things, think of it when you go to a restaurant and there's too many food offerings. Sometimes that's overwhelming to the point where people may not even eat anything. And so we don't want that to happen. So the minimal viable product, A, it allows you to make money quickly, which if you're starting a business, you need to do. And B, it allows you to learn and grow as you're going. So maybe you start with an offer that fits for right now. Maybe if you're entering the coaching space, I just say this because I think so many people get bad advice sometimes. So I'm passionate about it. But maybe you start in the coaching space and you build a Facebook group and you are working so hard to build community and get people engaged, and it's just not happening. It feels like a chore. You never feel awesome about it. What if you just stopped and instead, built a course or something? Maybe you start with a Facebook group and then you launch a course, and then instead now the group got you some proof of concept. Maybe you got some feedback from it, but at the end of the day, it wasn't fulfilling. Maybe you shift and you move to a different offer, but you have to start with one thing, and then you just have to talk about it over and over and over and over again. And I think that's what people forget.
Absolutely. And to your point, you have to talk about it over and over and over again. And that's one of the things, particularly if you're in the digital marketing, digital space, right? You're a coach or a consultant, a professional that does this sort of stuff, right? Whether you're on podcasts, and often people will say to me, oh man, I need to find some other things to talk about. They don't realize that, you can talk about the same thing over. And in fact, you need to talk about the same thing over and over and over again until you feel like you are a broken record, because often your audience is not listening to you necessarily over and over and over again, hearing that same message, and they have to hear it as frequently as they can to get the message to take some action, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the same could be applied for all kinds of things. I also host an in-person networking group. I have 2 co-founders. So 3 of us started this networking community earlier this year. And the first couple meetings were free. Any, open house, come. But the more we would talk about it, and the more successful events that we talk about for probably almost a month in different ways, whether people are sharing testimonials, whether we're talking about what topic we're going to cover, whether we talk about the venue we're having it at. We're talking about it in different ways over and over and over again. And that's how we're able to get good attendance at our events. I recently was asked to speak at an event that had to cancel because they literally only sold 1 ticket, and it was a room with 200-person capacity. And it's because they didn't have that solid launch period, that strategy leading up to it.
Yeah.
So it takes time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You've got to build the pressure, create the audience, create the excitement about what it is that you're doing to get people to actually want to come and want to listen, right? It's that piece of the puzzle around connecting with the audience in the right way.
People need to know why me, why now.
Absolutely. And if you can't speak to them in a way that shows them that you actually know them, you understand what their, like you're saying, understanding what the why, what your why is, but also what their why is. What is the problem that they're experiencing right now? And what's the resolution? What's the solution to that? And then talking about over and over and over and over again. I love it. Kelsey, I know that, this process that we've been talking about, is very heavily used in the online space. But what if you're, and for coaches and consultants and the like, what if you're somebody who wants to create their own, they don't really want to do the kind of whole, be the front person of their business. They just want a e-commerce business that sells stuff. What sort of things do you think, if they're thinking about, gosh, I want to do something else, I now have done the deep work, I understand what my why is, and my vehicle that I'm going to use is actually a physical product. What sort of things would you recommend they do?
Keep it simple, stupid. Kiss. I know. I'm like leaning on
Mhm.
my college degree today. I don't know. That's just what's coming up. But truly, and I've helped people do this. So I had a client who started a coffee mug business. Actually, it's pretty brilliant. So every design is etched on. So you can everything's microwave safe and dishwasher safe. So you can get a really cute, cool design that's there forever. Because you get those cute mugs with like, design
Mm,
on it, but then you wash it in the dishwasher one time and it wears off, or you put it in the microwave so brilliant idea, right? But I was like, you can't just post about it and buy it. So we came up with a full launch plan for her, a really simple website, and that's it. She wanted to add stickers and hats and all these other things because her branding was cute, but I'm
mm,
like, people don't know you yet. People are not going to wear a sweatshirt with your logo on it yet. And also, you're not going to get the ROI yet. The best use of your time, have a couple. I think she had 3 basic designs she launched with. She really was teasing it before it came out. She pushed people to sign up for the newsletter, so they were the first to know. Made that place a very valuable place to be. And then everyone signed up for the newsletter. She was able to launch it, and it's been awesome ever since. But I think what people do is
mm.
they think, I'm going to make a cute product. Oh, now I'm going to hire someone to do graphic design. Ooh, I need business cards. And they start to buy all these other things. And I think
Yeah.
before you take out the credit card, ask yourself, is this investment, whatever it is this investment going to have a return on investment? Am I going to get my money back some way? The
Hmm.
best use of your time with physical product is going to be having key people using it and sharing it with their friends and family and talking about it on
Hmm.
social media, especially something like a coffee mug. For her, it was perfect. She's a nail tech. So think of all the cute photos. She does the nails. It's her coffee mug. It made so much sense. I'm like, reach out to all your nail tech friends, give them a free one and just say, hey, could you just post about it? Tell me what you really think. Leave a review if this is something you enjoy and would recommend to your friends. But at the end of the day, could you take some
Mm.
photos and share them? That's a much better use of your time and dollars because that costs money than buying a roll of stickers to put on the packaging. I think people, yeah, like I said, it's not sexy. I'm not here to be sexy, people.
Yeah. But it is. It's just like, I know you said I'm leaning on some of the stuff that I've learned back in college, but the fact that they teach that, they've been
Yeah,
teaching that for years, is just keep it really simple. We have this tendency as humans to try or our want to overcomplicate things and create lots of stuff. So, keeping things really simple, getting your minimum viable product and just go for it. So the
yeah,
3 things I just want to reiterate that we have spoken about today that I think have been super, super important is, really getting to the core of why are you doing that? And Kelsey has given you some great tips and tools of places you can go, download, Simon Sinek's book and do that exercise, get to the core of your why. The second is really understanding or getting to a point where you've got a minimum viable product, and then keep it really simple. Keep things simple. Just go out there and get it done. Get a move on. Start taking action, but keep it really simple. Now, I know that you guys are probably thinking right now, gosh, I've loved what Kelsey's been talking about today, and wondering, where can you get in touch with her? Where can they go to get more of Kelsey? So I want to give Kelsey the opportunity to tell you guys where the best place is for you to connect with her. And if you feel she resonates with you and she's the right sort of person to work with, then you're going to take a conversation further, and I think you're going to be very pleased with your connection with Kelsey. So where can they go, Kels?
yeah. Thank you. I would simply go to my website, which is kelseymarieknutson.com. Everything is on there. I have information. If you have a podcast or would like me to come speak, I have a button that says press if you want to learn more about my networking group. Again, at this time, it's in person, but if you're just curious, it will lead you right to that. And then I have a list of all the different ways to work with me. As far as social media goes, I'm probably most active on Instagram. And then my second most would actually probably be LinkedIn. Thanks to my some old jobs that I've had. It's always been one that's been on my radar. So those two places. And yeah, I would love to connect. If you find me through the Unlocked podcast, please let me know that's how you found me so that way I can give Tracy a thank you too. And if you're listening and you enjoy this, please also provide that feedback, give her a review, because I know how much work goes into putting on something like this. So kudos to you, Tracy, too. And thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yes. Make sure, guys, you go over and do that. Give us a review and let us know what you think of the Unlocked show. But I want to say a huge thank you to you, Kelsey, for being such an amazing guest. Great to hear your wisdom, your expertise, and just, that level of advice to just, really keep things simple. Both you and I are really passionate about helping other people create businesses that they love, to create a level of freedom in their life that they've never had before. So I love the fact that we're totally in alignment with one another from that perspective. So I want to make sure that everybody does get the opportunity to head on over to your website, grab some of the stuff. I know you've got some free things on there. They can connect with you, all of that fun stuff. But please make sure that you do that. And if you want to connect with Kelsey and myself more, you can also go to Facebook. You can find the Facebook group. It's free. It is the Success Secrets for Business, Family, and Life group. Find this particular episode. And if you've got any questions for either Kelsey or myself, type them in there and we'll be sure to make sure that we answer all of the questions for you. But thanks, everybody, for tuning in today. It's an absolute pleasure to be of service to you guys and to share these amazing speakers with you. I'm going to be back again with another episode this Friday at 10 a.m. And as you know, every Wednesday and Friday, 10 a.m. Brisbane time, we go live with the Unlocked show. So thanks very much for joining me, and go and live your life unlocked, because there is just no other way. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Kelsey.
Thank you.
All right, guys. See you next time. Bye for now.